Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am part of Powerfly's virtual hosting team, and as always, could not be more honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly virtual event. Now, before we dive into questions or introduce you to our speakers, I just want to go over a couple quick housekeeping items. These will be especially important if maybe this is your first Power to Fly event. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome you. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. I love seeing so many familiar names and faces and avatars in the chat. Thank you so much for joining. Now, as we go through today's event, I want to highlight for everybody here that these events are about you, okay? You are the focus, you are the audience, and we want to make sure that you get the value that you came to get from today's event. So you are encouraged to participate in pretty much any way you'd like. There's a couple different options. You are welcome to turn your camera on if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. Truly, y'all, no need to be Instagram perfect, okay? I got real fancy today and decided to shower, but even if you are on the 4-day messy bun, dry shampoo routine, that's fine. We don't care. We don't care if you're calling in from a corner office or your living room couch. You can be in a 3-piece suit or your bathrobe. Doesn't matter to us. We just want to meet you where you are. Now, if you don't want to participate with your camera, that's completely fine. You can always head over to the group chat and let us know where you're joining us from. I'm really always very eager to see how far our global audience spreads. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belongs to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So please feel free to let us know where you're joining us from and if you know whose land you're on. Now, the big thing that you should know about our chat and learn events is that we are recording this, which means you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Greg and Tyler and Tashana. And you don't have to worry if you missed a reference that somebody made or a resource that somebody suggests. Now, if you do decide that you want to review this recording later, you can. In about 4 to 5 business days, Power to Fly is going to email everybody that registered with a link to where you can watch this recording when we post it on our website. Now, if let's say that Greg or Tyler or Tashana says something today that is just mind-blowing, paradigm shifting, you cannot wait to 4 to 5 business days to tell a friend or a relative or a coworker. You don't have to. You can head over to our YouTube channel. I'll be sharing links for all of this in the chat as we go. But you can head to our YouTube channel. The video, we're live streaming there now, so hi YouTube. And our videos, the recordings are usually posted like end of today, end of same day. So you can always check those out over there. Now, the YouTube channel is awesome. There is a lot of great stuff there. Greg wants to go viral. I hope it's for the right reasons. But yeah, we've got a huge section of our archive chats on our YouTube channel. Some of our favorites are in there, so I very much recommend you check those out. But check out the website too, y'all. That's where the Ark of the Covenant levels of archive are located, like everything from the beginning of Chat and Learns through now. So definitely take a look at powerfly.com. We have some amazing resources for you there. And we would love to be there for you at every stage of your career. Now, like I said, I very much encourage y'all to dive on into the chat. Let's see what we got here. Orlando, Miami, Florida, Killeen, Texas, Kitchener, Ontario, Chicago, Illinois, Tacoma, Washington, Miami, St. Louis, Dallas. Y'all loving this. Thank you so much for chiming in with where y'all are today. Now, as we are going through, if you have questions that you want to ask, we want to hear them. So please feel free, ask early, ask often, all right? We're going to go over some questions that you all submitted at registration, but you all took time to be here with us live, and we want to reward you for that. So if you have a question and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, ask it in the chat. If we're going over one of your questions and there's some more details we should know, some context, maybe we're just not looking at the question in the right angle, let us know in the chat. If you are interested or want to dive in deeper on literally anything our speakers are talking about today, let us know in the chat, okay? I want to make sure that you get the value that you came to get from today's event. So let me know what you want to know so I can get you the answers. Now, I'm very excited to introduce you to our speakers. But before I do, they are here today on behalf of Expedia Group. Now, probably this is a company that needs no introduction. I think many of us are familiar with Expedia Group and a lot of their products, their services. They've been a really great Powerfly partner since the entire time I've been here, so at least 4 years. And I'm very happy to get to introduce you to some of the amazing members of their teams. Now, just to highlight, we are here today to discuss transitioning into post-military employment. So our first guest today is going to be Tyler Roth. Tyler is a senior manager in human resources, is a senior manager in the human resource business partner division at Expedia Group. Tyler is also a proud U.S. Air Force veteran and a retired military spouse. Tyler is an active member of the Veterans Inclusion Business Group and holds a deep passion for providing support to all veterans and military spouses. Tyler, welcome to the stage today. We're so happy to meet you. Is there anything else our audience should know about you today?
Thank you. Let's see a little about me. I'm in Indiana now. So, land of the cornfields. So that's fun.
We're in Indiana.
Indianapolis. So right in the heart of
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh, proud graduate of Indiana University, Bloomington. So go Hoosiers.
Oh, both my sisters went there. So there you go. And then my husband, he graduated from Purdue. So we're all from.
We won't hold that against him.
Yeah.
They're perfectly fine people.
Fine. It's fine. We don't hold that against him. But yeah, no, I'm very excited to be here today, and I'm excited to share a little bit about my experience as active duty military transitioning out, and then also on the flip side, being a military spouse. So thanks for having me.
Just as a, out of curiosity, how long has it been since you were in the military? Like, how long have you been out?
Since for me, oh gosh, you could make me do math live now. I got out in 2011. And then my husband got out 2 years ago.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you so much, Tyler. All right, joining Tyler up on stage, we have Tashana Lopez. Now, Tashana is a U.S. Navy veteran, as well as a diversity sourcing partner with Expedia Group. Tashana actively engages in diversity initiatives and brings extensive experience, having served in various capacities within the HR realm. Now, Tashana's dedication extends to driving inclusive hiring practices, particularly focusing on promoting opportunities for underrepresented groups, as well as veterans, aligning with the company's comprehensive DE&I recruitment strategy. Tashana, so happy to welcome you to the stage. What should our audience know about you today?
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I felt like you covered basically everything. I'm in Dallas. I'm not from Dallas, so I don't know what this is the land of day parties, I guess. I'm not sure, but awesome. Yeah, just super excited to be here and share my experience. And I hope that everyone gets something out of it that's super helpful and helps them with their transition.
Of course. How long have you been out of the military, by the way?
I have been out. So I left active duty Navy in 2020, actually a week before everything shut down for the pandemic. So that was fun. And then I did 2 years of the reserve after that. So technically I've been out for like a year.
Hey, you know what? There's all levels of out, which is something you learn once you have any interaction with either the military yourself or with a partner within. So thank you so much, Tashana. All right, rounding out our trifecta today, we have Greg Bradshaw joining us. Now, Greg is a senior manager of talent acquisition at Expedia Group, where he leads a recruitment delivery team for AMERS, A-M-E-R-S. I'm not going to try and remember what the acronym stands for. I looked it up specifically for this. Do not remember, so I'm going to give that to Greg. But he focuses on supporting sales roles. Now, Greg is an active member of Expedia's inclusion business groups and brings a wealth of experience as a U.S. Navy veteran and a talent leader. He plays a pivotal role in driving veterans hiring initiatives as part of the company's holistic DEI recruitment strategy. Greg, thank you so much for joining us. What else would you like our audience to know about you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. I will tell you, Tashana had a better Navy career than me. And so I always like to tease her about that. But I guess since you asked the others, I got out in, when did I get out? January of 2010. So it's been almost 14 years. So that means I'm getting old.
First off, who but
Dallas,
all right, we all are.
Yeah, exactly. Here in Dallas with Tashana. For those of y'all that haven't been to this part of Texas, you need to know about Buc-ee's. And if you don't know what Buc-ee's is, we can chat after.
I have heard of the legend of Buc-ee's. My mom has been. I literally had her call me from the parking lot and I was like, what is it? Everything? And she was like, yeah, it is. It's everything. So now I have to go visit Dallas or visit Texas, if only to be at a Buc-ee's. So thank you so much for reminding me of that lifelong dream I have. All right, y'all. We're gonna dive on in and start with our questions today. Let me get my speakers all up here on stage. But like I said, please feel free to ask questions as we go. I'll have my eyes on the chat. If you have any questions or comments that you want to raise, but you'd like to be kept anonymous, no worries. Just DM them to me. I'm happy to ask your question or raise your comments and keep you anonymous for everyone. All right, so to get us started here, we got some really great questions that came in. So we're gonna try and take them in like maybe topic chunks. Let's talk a little bit about initially what it was like for you when you transitioned from military into non-military employment. I just want to know what your experience was like. What did you do first and what came, as a result of that? Tyler, would you like to start us?
Sure. So I didn't plan on getting out of the Air Force. I was a month away from starting pilot training when I was medically retired. So I had 10 knee surgeries. So my goal was to fly the B-2 bomber. And that was all I ever wanted to do. And be an astronaut. But, little kids have dreams. And so mine was very abrupt. I went through the medical board, I fought it, and it was a sense of loss when I got out. It wasn't by choice, really. It was neat. At that point, I got caught in the perfect storm. Looking back, it was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. To be honest, timing wise, we never know what's or who is looking out for us, because there's always a bigger plan. And my husband, now husband, he was an Army Ranger. So there's no way in the world we would have, as an Air Force pilot and Army Ranger, we would never have been around each other. And so I lost my sense of identity because that's all I had grown up wanting to be. I wanted to be in the Air Force. I wanted to make a difference. And I actually had I couldn't find a job right off the bat. I was waitressing and I was the worst waitress, hands down. Terrible, just terrible. I like to talk to people and that's not like too much. So at one point I actually had screwed up this poor couple's order about 4 times. And at the end, I had my academy ring on at the time. And he asked me, he was like, "Where'd you go to school?" I was like, "The Air Force Academy." He's like, "Well, why are you here?" And I told him my story and he handed me a card and it was the CEO of Rolls-Royce. And I got a job offer that way. So that is how I got my first big kid job, was because I was such a bad waitress.
Hey, whatever it takes. All right. You're not the only person that's gotten job offers from being a bad waitress. It's happened to me twice. So no shade there. No shame. No, I love this. Okay. Greg, how about you? What was it like? What was your first steps as you were trying to transition out? Did you also have a hard time finding a role? What was it like for you?
Yeah, thank you, Meg. My transition was probably like, I wouldn't say worst case scenario because there's always people in worse situations, but I would say my transition was pretty bad. When I got out of the Navy, I was kind of bitter with the military at that point. I'm like super pro Navy, pro military, pro vet at this point, but probably too proud about it. I think probably Tashana and Tyler probably would tell me to shut up sometimes about how excited I am about being a vet, but it was not the case when I got out. I was bitter with my time in the service, and I was also the first couple of years I was out, I didn't even want to talk about it. I didn't even want to let people know I was in the military. A lot of that stemmed from just how I felt as far as the work I put in and not promoting at the pace I felt I should promote at. And little did I know, Uncle Sam, especially in the Navy, for those of y'all in the Navy, oftentimes if the billets aren't there, it doesn't matter how high you score on tests or your performance evaluations. It's like they need a slot to slot you in. I felt I was ready for the next level, and it just didn't happen at my time. So, anyways, long story short, I did finish 3 deployments. Was telling my leadership I'm getting out, and this is 14 years ago. So probably didn't have the resources or programs or urgency around helping vets transition well back then. And they sent me on deployment right before I was getting out, and that was fun. And I got back to the States 2 months before I got out, and so by that time I was kind of really bitter because I just, instead of planning my life post military, I was on the other side of the world. And I remember when I went through TAPS class, they were like, it felt kind of, and I'm sure it's better now, but when I went through, it was like, learn how to write a resume in a day. And that was your transition, right? And we were going around the room talking about, what do you all want to do when you get out of the Navy? And I was just, at that point, I was just being like a practical joker. I told everyone I wanted to be, you ever seen the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze? I told everybody I wanted to be, I told them I wanted to be a cooler. Y'all know what a cooler is? Just throw people out of bars when I get out of the Navy. And so that was my transition plan. And as you can imagine, it didn't go well. And I joined college and did the GI Bill mainly because I just needed to be able to pay my rent, not because I was actually interested in going to school. I became interested, though, and ended up graduating. And then I really struggled with employment. I struggled with housing. I struggled with a lot of different things. So it took me a lot to kind of get on track. And so that's where my passion comes from, in helping vets into corporate, because mine was not, partially due to my own fault, and then also partially with the way that the military transitioned vets back then. So it was a combination of me not planning myself, and then also a combination of not getting any support from my command. So a lot's changed, but I'm happy to be here and help as many vets as I can.
Thank you. And thank you both for sharing these things, because I feel like we're in a safe space here. We're in a space with a lot of people that understand the ethos of the military. And again, I'm coming to this from a completely outsider perspective. My husband was in the Army, but was not while we were together. So I am coming to this very much lately to the game. But this is a very common thing, right? Because you're not just exiting a job, you're exiting a lifestyle. And that is very unfamiliar and very hard to understand for people that have never been in or don't know anybody that has been in the military. Tashana, did you have a similar experience? Was there, did you have difficulties transitioning out? What was your experience like?
Yeah, it's always interesting hearing everyone else's experience. And it's interesting to see that everyone has a different experience. For me, my experience was completely different from Greg and Tyler's. I served for about 10 years on active duty and then 2 years afterwards in the reserve. But after my first 4 years in the Navy, I already knew that I wasn't gonna retire. It wasn't something that I was interested in doing. But in the Navy, depending on your job, you usually start off doing a few years on a ship, and then you get to transition and do some years on what we call shore duty. So not being on the ship and being able to stay on land. So I was like, hey, I already did my ship time. The Navy owes me my shore time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and then leave. And my goal was to finish my degree and then leave. And that's what I did. So after my first enlistment, I started preparing myself to leave the military. I actually joined as a gas turbine systems technician. So if any engineers out there, shout out to us. But that was something that I was not passionate about. I really did not like it, hated it actually. And I was able to transition into a career counseling role within our engineering department. And that's when I fell in love with being in human resources. I decided to pivot and get my degree in HR while I was still serving. So I was able to use my tuition assistance, got a few associate degrees, and then got my bachelor's degree. And then I actually got the opportunity to transition to a recruiting role. And once I got into the recruiting role, I was like, okay, this is definitely what I want to do when I leave the military. Like I was really good at it, and it felt very comfortable, and it was something I was passionate about. So during my time as a recruiter, I had really supportive chain of command. They already knew that I had an exit plan. This was my last stop in the Navy. And I actually was able to do an internship at AutoZone Corporate. At the time I was stationed in Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where their corporate office is. So I did an internship with their talent acquisition team with the support of my chain of command. And really, I wanted to make sure that this was something I could do outside of the military. Sometimes the military just seems so different and so siloed that it's like, okay, I'm good at this in the military, but can I do this outside? And then in that role, I just realized that recruiting is fundamentally the same everywhere you go. It's just you have to really understand the nuances of the company you're with or the organization, and then, you're golden from there. So after doing my internship, I was like, all right, it's time to go. It's 10 years. Like, usually I feel like at 10 years, you're either going to leave or you're going to stay and do another 10. So I decided to transition out. And when I did that internship, it really opened up a lot of doors for me. I was able to network with a lot of people in the corporate world. And I feel like once you dive into one corporate organization, you're kind of tapped into like all of them after that. So yeah, networking and really just taking advantage of other programs that the military had for transitioning members really helped me have a smooth transition out of the military into the corporate world.
Excellent. Oh, all right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, y'all. Okay, let's start kind of bare bones. I want to know, what are some of the most common mistakes that you've seen with veterans who are transitioning, especially if people who are, maybe new in their career search, people who are not moving seamlessly from job A into job B. Does anybody want to start us here? Greg, you're nodding. You want to start?
Oh, I think I was just stretching my neck. No, I'm good. I'm just teasing. I can go. Yeah, that's a really great question, because I don't think that there's like one canned answer. There's so many nuances and so many individual stories. But I would just say, from just initial perspective, we talk about skills translation and how we market ourselves to the organization of choice. And so Tashana talked about like transitioning into human resources. And, if you're looking at your resumes, I think we have a section, we're going to talk a little bit about resumes here in a few. But how do you market it, right? Like, sometimes even myself as a vet, if I'm interviewing another vet, was interviewing a bunch of vets yesterday, for various fellowship cohort positions. And, even from a career counseling perspective, they haven't gotten in front of the hiring managers yet, but some of the opportunities say like, hey, if I did 10, 15 years, I'm an artillery officer, right? Like, how do you translate being an artillery officer to being an operations manager at X company, or, whatever the case may be, infantry officer, if you're in the Navy, you're an executive officer or officer of the deck, right? Using a lot of the nomenclature, the jargon, that we know specific. Even we get confused branch to branch. What we talk about in the Navy, our language wise, doesn't always make sense in the Army or Air Force. So using language and using terminology that makes sense when you get into the interview, really about marketing yourselves. And I know we talk about it a lot as vets. We always tend, because from day one of whether you're doing OCS or the academy or boot camp or however you came in the military, it's all about a team. And we talk about our accomplishments as a we. But when you get in the interviews and start marketing yourselves, you got to talk about I and the accomplishments you made as an individual. And sometimes that can be challenging as well in the initial transition. But I'll pause, because I think probably Tashana and Tyler have a lot of good stuff to add to it.
Yeah. Okay. Tashana, what's your what's your view on this? Do you think there are more common mistakes that vets make as they're trying to transition?
Yeah, I definitely think Greg hit it on the head with most of the mistakes. I also think from what I've seen, a lot of vets, we definitely are in demand. We have a lot of transferable skills, but I feel like a lot of vets take that for advantage, and they don't market themselves. They just think, okay, I'm a veteran, I have all these skills, here I am, hire me. And in the job market, especially how it is right now, you definitely have to sell yourself. So like I said, for me, networking helped a lot. And I know a lot of people don't like doing it. I don't like doing it myself, but it is very beneficial, because really it is about who you know sometimes, and not really that much about what you know. So networking for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with this. And you're right. Networking is one of those things where people that can do it well tend to not think it's that big a deal. People who don't like to do it are like, this is madness and I hate it. And it's like getting my skin peeled off. Totally understandable, y'all. Just because I like to chat doesn't mean I like to network. But like, it really is one of those things where if you're able to reframe it in your head, right, and think about it in terms of not who can I get in touch with and what can they do for me, but more of, that's a really interesting person. That person's going somewhere in their career. That person is doing the thing that I want to be doing. And talking to them and making it a relationship makes it much more of a two-way street, because like, let's be real, every person that you meet knows something that you don't, and that goes double for people who either are trying to network with you or you are trying to network with. So knowing that, at least for me, it made it a lot easier to think of it in less transactionally and more in terms of like a two-way street. Tyler, did you struggle with the same kind of things? Like, was networking hugely important for you? Do you think there were other areas that maybe you made mistakes in that you would do differently?
Yeah, I'd say I will piggyback on what Greg said. I was very hesitant to brag on myself on what I was able to accomplish. And my knee-jerk reaction is to be a people pleaser and say, yeah, we did this. We accomplished this. But it was not until I had a mentor who showed me that I needed to highlight what my experience is and not downplay it, not see my military time as basically a career break, see it as a benefit and to showcase it that way. Because more often than not, people see it as, well, this is my first real job. And I even said that previously. My first big kid real job was at Rolls-Royce, but it's still such a invaluable really experience while you're in, no matter how long you're in. You are exposed to so much and you have so many transferable skills just from that experience that you just have to learn how to market yourself, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this leads us into a really interesting area, and I want to try and do this as much as we can with examples that y'all have used. But let's talk about some of those transferable skills, right? This is something that we talk about a lot, not just when it comes to veterans, but when it comes to pretty much anybody. Because the amount of time that you spend as a person on the planet, you are developing these skills, right? And, Tyler, like you just said, being in the military, no matter which branch you're in, you are put in a lot of different situations. You are exposed to situations, people, settings, cultures that you might never otherwise have done. And those are really valuable experiences. Like you said, this isn't a placeholder. This is you living life. This is you becoming a person. So I think it is really important that we talk about those transferable skills. Obviously, this is different for everyone, but let's talk about some of the skills that you brought and ways that you talked about them in, as here's how this applies. Let's see, Tashana, would you want to start us?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, when I first started in the military, I was a mechanical engineer. So going from that to HR, I definitely had to highlight a lot of transferable skills. I think one thing that a lot of people don't think about when they transition is we deal with a lot of personnel type things when we're in the military, especially if you make it to the rank of like E5 and above. You're most likely in a supervisor type of position, manager type of position, and those are really sought after skills. So definitely make sure that you highlight any type of managerial skills that you have dealing with people, especially if you are targeting like manager type jobs, because those skills are definitely needed. And then other transferable skills. Of course, I did recruit when I was in the military. So I just talked about metrics. That's a really big one. If you're going into any role where the job description, highlights that this person is going to be expected to hit some type of metrics or KPIs, making sure that you're quantifying that and putting that on your resume and also talking about it during interviews is super important as well.
No, I absolutely agree with this. Tyler, do you also agree? Like what when you were trying to highlight transferable skills, what did you highlight and how did you communicate this is why this tracks?
Yeah. So mine was a little different. I didn't have I didn't get that far because of the medical retirement. But I my first big kid job. I'm going to keep doing that in quotations, but I actually went into aerospace engineering. So very different from where I am right now in HR, which is funny because Tashana and I, we basically very similar paths. But I highlighted my experience in my classwork, honestly. But what really got me the job is I want to say leadership, to be honest, is because during my time in the military, I ran basic trainings for their prep school. I was the squad commander a few times, and I think having that as someone fresh out, comparing it to a fresh grad who hasn't had that type of leadership experience or hasn't been exposed to the variety of experiences that I was thrown into, it just brings you a different level of, I want to say maturity,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
to a role and to an applicant. And then also program management. You have that's a big one. I know it's I don't want to call it a buzzword because it's a very useful transferable skill. But to be able to, in the military in general, you always have a ton of balls in the air, and to be able to prioritize that and to have that skill set, that's invaluable, I believe. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember talking to somebody, I don't think it was this past year. I want to say it was probably in 22. One of our monthly summits focused on veterans and military spouses. And I remember talking with somebody who said that his experience working in water treatment, I don't remember what branch of the military he was in, but he talked about it in interviews as being like, oh yeah, and I was in charge of such and such amount, like this much worth of equipment for the military. I managed this amount of water. I like you know what I mean? So I liked that it was something that you're kind of opening up, right? These are a lot of situations that if I say, like, you say you were the unit commander. Okay, that means a lot of stuff to somebody that's in the military, but it doesn't to somebody that's not outside the military, that's not within. So I think it is really important that, yes, brag about yourself, right? Because people don't know these things unless you tell them. And you're speaking in what is likely to be, if not a foreign language, then at least an unfamiliar dialect for the person you're speaking with. So you do have to kind of call these things out and become comfortable talking about yourself and bragging about yourself, because otherwise they're not going to understand like that. Oh yeah, that means that you were in charge of 200 other people and you kept everybody on track and they were all doing exactly what they needed to be doing because you were good at your job. And so I think it is really important that we kind of remember that, you do have to brag about yourself, but you have to do it in a way that the person understands, that you're not just using these buzzwords that absolutely mean something but don't translate to this person. I like this. Okay. Now, just quick reminder, y'all, if you have questions or if you want to add in layers to these questions, please feel free, ask in the chat. You can also send me a DM if you'd like. We have a little less than 30 minutes left in today's session. This always goes really fast. So if you've got questions, ask them. All right. I want to talk a little bit about how hiring managers can be more open to candidates with post-military backgrounds. Obviously, each of you are involved in this process now, Greg and Tashana, of course, especially. What should hiring managers know? If people are in the room that are outside of the military that are looking at hiring military veterans or military spouses, what should they know about people with post-military backgrounds? Tyler, do you want to start us?
So I think what they should know is that they're the hardest group of workers that they will see. They are the most humble group of people. So because they don't like to brag on themselves, it's all about the team, and they're used to going above and beyond to accomplish a task, a mission. And so to them, us vets, we have a higher standard, I believe. We don't just want to do a task just to complete it. It's more of how we go about it, and we're very blunt and to the point, especially once when we get out. We like to be very direct, and you have a very transparent relationship with them, so you know how they're thinking, and they're going to tell you if you're wrong or not, which I think is good.
And confirm.
Yes. Because I think more often than not, we fall into the comfort zone of recruiting like-minded people. And if you don't have those people that will challenge you and think about a problem in an out-of-the-box solution, then how are you going to continue to grow and to change? So
yeah, of course.
Margaret
raises a good point in the chat here saying, vets are highly adaptable and can change course with the drop of a hat. Truly, like you've literally lived your life at the whims of Congress, for lack of a better way to put it. And so truly, like you are adaptable. These are things that are very important to remember. Greg, how do you feel about this? Do you think that there are other things that hiring managers should consider or should really understand about a veteran or military spouse applicant?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually tied to a bigger piece. Like when you all are looking for your company of choice or doing research, understanding a military talent, there's different levels of maturity within different organizations on how they have military talent interwoven within their organization. So I would encourage everyone to, when you're going on to whether it's Expedia or any other, go on their career site, see what employer resource group they have tied towards veterans, but then also go on LinkedIn and start researching people in different levels of leadership or different groups and see who in there is also a veteran. Because I think what you're going to find out is if you're not finding many veterans in that company, they're probably not going to know a whole lot about the value that veterans bring to the organization. And that's not a hit on them. It's just most of these employee resource groups tied towards vets, or like the programs that Tashana, Tyler, and myself are charging, are being led by veterans, right? So some companies, for whatever reason, maybe location or industry, have fewer vets just in general, and maybe their resources towards, it's not that they're against vets, it's just they don't have the knowledge or the focus. And so I would encourage you all to just really see what's already established and do your research and do your due diligence. As it relates to the hiring manager level, what Expedia does, we do a really good job, is we have trainings and educations on how to interview in general. So all of our hiring managers go through a license to hire training to avoid bias and ensure that DE&I inclusivity is part of that, which includes veterans as part of our is part of our diverse group within Expedia. But then on top of that, I think some of the trainings and what we do from a human resource perspective to train our recruiters and help to bridge the gap with hiring teams on the value of veterans. So it happens kind of at the micro level, but then also at the macro level. And so I think you're really not going to know, what that team or that hiring manager or that company, how they feel about vets until you start doing your research and start asking questions. Part of that is through networking as well, which Tashana and Tyler mentioned. So if you go in blind and you haven't done your research, who knows how they feel about vets. But there's some companies that do it very well and some companies that have some opportunity areas.
Opportunity areas is choice. That's fabulous. And you're completely right. I mean, my husband's worked for companies where it was clearly a draw of like, oh, good, tax write-off. Great. Because, they do get it. They get a bump back. And that's wonderful. But you're right. Like, it's also one of those places where it's like, okay, well, how do you support your military? Well, we have a cookout. Okay. Opportunity area, perhaps, just saying. But very important and very good thing to raise is that you are interviewing these companies just as much as they're interviewing you. So absolutely, Greg, completely agree. Tashana, I wanted to go to you to start this question. When we're talking about specific initiatives and programs that are aimed at promoting these opportunities, what do these look like at Expedia Group? Obviously, this is an area that is very important to many of you. But what kind of support is there at Expedia for people from a military background?
Yeah, definitely. So this was one of the main reasons why I joined Expedia and I stay at Expedia, because you can definitely tell that the people here are very dedicated to bringing in diverse talent, especially, people with military backgrounds. And that's something that's near and dear to my heart. So we do have some really cool initiatives and partnerships that we work with, Power to Fly being one of them. We also work with Hiring Our Heroes. And if you haven't heard of Hiring Our Heroes, it's like a 12-week cohort. It's a part of, military skill bridge, where we have people that are transitioning from the military actually come work at Expedia for those 12 weeks. And they get to work in like different parts of the business and really just get that hands-on experience and corporate experience. And usually they transition into a full-time role. We're also partnering with Microsoft with their MSSA program. So that's really more tech focused, and they help veterans get certifications in different tech programs. So if you haven't heard of that, definitely check that out. That's a really good opportunity as well, and it's free of cost to people that are transitioning and veterans as well. So it doesn't matter if you've been out for a while, they will still accept your application if you meet the requirements, of course. And Expedia, we actually have a dedicated team of recruiters that focus on all things military recruitment. So we work with, different organizations, and we have different partnerships and initiatives going on within that specific team as well. And as Greg mentioned, we do have our military champions, and they actually, they lead trainings, they create trainings just to help hiring managers and interviewers really understand how to interview military, and maybe just some of the jargon that we may talk about and things like that. So yeah, we're definitely super, super dedicated to bringing in military talent within Expedia.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Love to hear it. Tyler, is there anything that you wanted to add to this? I wanted to make sure that we gave everybody a chance to talk about the programs, because y'all have quite the impressive list.
No, I think Tashana covered all of our future plans on the program. So I'm just happy to be a part of it. I've only been with Expedia Group for a year and a half. And so when I joined, that was one of my questions is, do you have a military program? And do you have a military hiring program? If not, can I start it? And then they pointed me to Greg, and that's how we got connected.
Yeah, absolutely love that. We did have a really good question come in out of the chat. This one, they wanted to be asked anonymously. Depending on your area of service, the military can tend to value degrees higher than certifications. Did y'all run into this at all? Obviously, Tashana, you had talked about utilizing your military service, what is it, your GI Bill, to get your college courses and stuff in while you were serving. But does anybody want to speak on the idea of the degree versus certificates? Greg, go for it.
Yeah, I'll start, and then Tyler and Tashana, feel free to jump in at any point. But we actually, as an organization, have a large shift towards skills-based hiring in general. So whether it's veteran or non-vet, we're obviously, degrees and certs, depending on the role, the job architecture, the requirements of the position, those are still factors. So I'm not going to say that none of that matters anymore. But as an organization, we are shifting towards skills-based hiring. So that where you see, not only from veteran pipelines, but I think Julianne's on here. She's part of our talent attraction team. We have other pipelines, returnship program, and other non-traditional talent pipelines that we're really, really focused on. And also, for lack of better, we just really value bringing different perspectives into the organization than just your 22-year-old coming out of college with their degree. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but veterans bring a lot of life experience. We've talked about it, from problem solving, adversity, leadership, and a million other things. We value that as an organization in the vet community, and that also trickles into our other broader D&I space.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're looking at, it's like Tyler said, like there's a degree of maturity that is demanded, honestly, at pretty base levels of military service that, I mean, I certainly didn't learn at my first bullshit jobs. So, it really is, it's important to highlight this, truly. Like this is valuable time. It's not like, oh, I was, on ice for 12 years or whatever. Like these things are important. And, it really is important to remember that, you are bringing those unique challenges and unique perspectives to these jobs. Very, very important. Let's see here. Okay, we did have a couple of questions around resumes and that kind of thing. A lot of people had questions regarding how to stand out, especially if they are applying to Expedia Group. So what do y'all recommend? Are cover letters specifically important to y'all? Is that where you explain the transition that you're making? Or are there other ways that people should make themselves stand out if they're applying to Expedia? Tyler, you want to start?
Yeah, I was actually going to throw it to Tashana, but yeah, I'll start. I would say cover letters are good, but I would say highlighting make sure you tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for to highlight the relevant skills. And I think I probably just, based on Tashana's reaction, I think I just stole one of her points, but I think, that's going to be the biggest one, because I know in the chat, I've been reading all the comments, which are fantastic, but just understanding it's hard to pare down your experience into a few pages. And it's such a difficult thing, and you want to share what you've done. So only the relevant experience, but always have numbers. Data is key. So having numbers and that we can be able to quantify your experience, like you were saying earlier, of, hey, I was responsible of X amount of people and I was responsible for this amount of money. And showing the impact, always have the impact. I always had to laugh when we got the resumes where you could see that the bullet points on someone's resume was just copied and pasted from the job description they were hired from. So highlight what you were actually accomplished and what your impact was and why you stood out. And then the next thing I would say is network. Reach out to us and start understanding what jobs you're a good fit for. And I think that's always going to be the best way, because job titles are not standardized across any company. And so understanding, hey, this job, I recruited in tech for a long time. So this job is more data scientist, but this job is actually more of a data engineer. They read the same, but this is the one you really want. So having someone who can read it and say, nope, you actually go over here is crucial. So now, Tashana, I'll pass it over to you.
Go for it, Tashana.
Well, that's hard to follow because you stole all my points. But that's a good problem to have. I did see someone mention the STAR method earlier in the chat, and that is my go-to every time. I tell people when they're writing their resumes, when they're interviewing, use the STAR method. And STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. If you always follow that, your resume is definitely going to stand out, because it explains it basically tells a story about your career and why you're the person that should be in this role. I know everyone has different thoughts on cover letters. Me as a recruiter, I'll be honest, I don't read them. When you're applying to really large organizations like Expedia, we tend to get hundreds of applications for jobs. So cover letters usually aren't something that I particularly focus on, and this is just a personal thing. Other recruiters may love cover letters, but for me, I need your resume to tell me exactly why I want to hire you. And then something else that I think is a really good thing to have on your resume is a professional summary. I know when I was going through TGPS in the Navy, which is their transitioning program, it was a really old school way of how to write your resume, and they told people to put I think it was an objective, a professional.
Yeah, career objectives.
Yeah.
It was garbage. We all did it. They were terrible.
Yeah, that's not good, because the objective is basically saying, hey, I'm Tashana, I'm looking for a job and I want a job in this. Well, yeah, I know, because you applied to this job. So a professional summary is much better, because it's just really just a brief description of your entire career in like one paragraph. And it really just shows the impact before I even get to the bullet points. And usually that's the selling point for me. If I see someone with a really strong professional summary, then I'm more interested to read the rest of their resume.
I like that. We're getting a lot of comments in the chat from people who are talking about how like they have really long resumes, and y'all truly, that makes a ton of sense. Do yourself a favor. This is information that was not at all clear to me until I started working in recruiting, okay, with literally no HR background. You need to make this a breadcrumb trail for the hiring manager to follow, but I'm not talking crumbs. We're talking entire loaves, okay? You want to make it as clear as possible, as quickly as possible for that hiring manager. So you are not trying to be sly. You're not trying to be subtle. You're trying to say, this is why I can do this job. You want somebody that can do that, and I did it like this. You want someone that can do that, and I did it like that, okay? The other thing to do, there's a ton of different names for them. I call them spaghetti resumes, but it's literally everything you have. Okay. So anything you have ever done, I don't care if it runs 87 pages long, throw everything you've got into that resume. You now have a bank that you can pull from when you are looking at the job description so that you can look and say, oh yeah, I worded that really well in this one and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Work smarter, not harder. Okay. Truly, y'all. Do the dump resume or the spaghetti resume, however you want to say it. And then pare down from there. Truly make it the best of the best. You can always pare down a little bit more and have someone else read it, preferably not your mom. She's great, but not your mom. All right, last like 5 minutes we've got here. I want to kind of bring it back a little bit to Expedia Group. You all have shared some really great things about the company and what they've done to support y'all and make your transitions easier, or make it easier for you to help others transition out. I want to know, what is the thing that keeps you at Expedia Group? What's the thing that you don't think you're going to find anywhere else? I don't care if it's your super awesome parking space, or your bestie who works in finance, or, Taco Tuesdays in the lunchroom. What is the thing that you don't think you're going to find anywhere else? And so this is why you love Expedia. This is why you're home. This is where you are. Greg, you want to start us?
Yeah, sure. And last, I will say on your resume tips, always be sure to spray it with cologne or perfume. That always helps when they get your resume. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I haven't seen that in a while.
It's scented.
Yes, and then put it in 45 font. That always helps too.
Lime green on a black background.
Yes. Yeah, what keeps me here? I will say Tyler and Tashana keep me here, and everyone else I work with. And I genuinely mean that. We had, I've been out for 14 years, and I can't say that my experience matches what anybody on this call's experience is. I realize 14 years is a long time. We didn't even have smartphones back then. I think I was on the Razor phone back in 2010, flipping, thought I was a cool guy in my Scion TC. So, life has changed a lot. And, but what I would say, what keeps me here in this culture, I think you'll probably see, you can Google it. We just got top 50 corporate culture in the United States. So a lot of really cool awards we get, but we're a tech company, so we move fast. We got to adapt. We got to change. And no matter what level of role or what you're doing in the organization, if you see something you want to get into and you want to make a difference, you can. And example, military recruitment initiatives. We all on this call, and a lot of the other team members that aren't able to join, we saw a need to have focused military programs. So we built it out, and the company fully supported it. And that's what you're going to get. If you have a good idea, people are going to support you. It's just a really good culture here.
Excellent. Okay. Tashana, what about you? What keeps you at Expedia? What do you think? What is the thing that you're like, I'm not going to find this anyplace else. This is where I like it.
Yeah, well, definitely +1 to everything Greg said. I think the culture here at Expedia, I like to tell people it's people-centric. I feel seen and I feel heard here, and that's super important. I feel like sometimes you can be in a large organization and just feel like a number. That's how I felt when I was in the military, which is why I didn't stay. But here, they actually listen to you. We have quarterly employee surveys, which I thought was a bit much when I first started. But now that I've been here for a while, I'm like, okay, I understand why. Because they really want to hear from us. They want to hear, what are we doing good? What can we improve on? And every time we go over the survey results as a team, it's never the same thing, which lets me know that, we're actually making improvements and they're listening to what we're saying. I also really love that you have a direct line to your senior leaders. They really support what we're doing. Our SVP of talent acquisition, she's super involved in like our military initiative. She loves hearing our ideas and she supports us in what we want to do. And that's the experience I've had with other senior leaders outside of HR as well. So I love that you have that direct line to them. They're super, super open to mentoring you, just talking. So I think that that's awesome. In other corporations I've been in, it's like they're behind like a closed door and you really don't even know what they look like. Like you've seen pictures of them, but they don't come out and like talk to you or anything like that. So I really enjoy that. And of course, the travel benefits.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Well, and I think you made a really good point, having that direct communication, that's got to be a very different feeling from the very hierarchy, very like chain of command within the military. So yeah, I mean, that sounds incredibly valuable. Tyler, how about you? Has yours already been taken yet? Or do you have something that is unique to you?
That's fair. I would say the people is the number one, and then also the growth opportunities. So I have a very varied past, and this was the first company that saw that as a strength and are always offering new ways of, okay, I know you're really interested in and passionate about leading. What does that look like to you? And they really care. It's not me trying to fight up the chain or fight to find my way. They were actually very supportive to help me find the position I'm in now. And actually our SVP, she's the one that actually showed me this new position. So just they open doors for you and they want you to be vocal. They want you to share your thoughts, share your insights, and because they're open to change and they're open to doing what's best for the company and for the team itself, which I think is wonderful to see.
Yeah, of course. I mean, honestly, none of the stuff you've said is a surprise to me, but it's always like, it's nice to hear just because we know I've gotten to work with so many Expedia Group members. Y'all talk about great things about the group, but it's always nice to kind of get a new peek at a different area within Expedia that y'all are crushing it, and I didn't even know. So thank you so much. All right, that's going to bring us to the end of our time today, but I just want to say a huge thank you, Greg, Tashana, and Tyler. Thank you so much for taking time to spend with us today. It is obvious all the prep work y'all did, prior to today's event. So thank you so much for sharing your time, your expertise, and your journeys with us. It's been amazing, and I really hope that we get to do this again soon. All right, y'all. To all of our audience members, thank you, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. You have a ton of options when it comes to networking and virtual events like this, and so we are always very, very grateful that you chose to spend time with Power to Fly and great partners like the Expedia Group. If anything that we've said here today has pricked your interest in Expedia, I definitely recommend that you check out their company page. I'm going to share the link here again in the chat. When you navigate there, I recommend that you click the follow button. It's a big pink button at the top center of their page. It's going to do some really great things for you, but effectively what it does is it works like your friend who already works at Expedia Group. So it's going to tell the Expedia Group that you are interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. So it's a very good option if you are actively job seeking, but maybe don't see a listing right this second that is just like calling your name and perfect for you. Click that button. The other thing that it does is it allows Power to Fly to take some of the weight off of you in your job search. So you don't have to keep coming back and checking and rechecking job boards. We will let you know when Expedia Group posts new roles. So very, very awesome resource and tool within our arsenal there. If this was your first Power to Fly event, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. If you're one of our frequent flyers and you've seen me a ton, I cannot wait to see you again on another Power to Fly event soon. Have a nice day, y'all. Bye.